One more week after this.
One more week? Yeah. And then like, I think December 3rd-ish, like that weekend, we'll probably have a little get together, you know, just to like wrap things up. And I don't want, because the week after we finish will be Thanksgiving. So that's the perfect time, right? And I didn't even realize it, but it's like, we'll finish up and you'll all go see your families. So we'll see how well this worked, right? That's the key. So all of the mantras will be running through your head at once, right? And you know, we'll get to see how the payoff is, and then we'll meet up and we'll talk about it and we'll have a little party. So that'll be the wrap up. But yeah, a couple more weeks. So how'd everybody's week go? Crazy? Yeah. So the last week was, you know, and I figured out a new thing to call these things. I'm gonna call them, because I was struggling with this for a long time. When I was putting this whole thing together, I'm like, what do I call these statements? And it was right there in front of me. It's a statement. It's the state you're meant to get into, right? So I'm gonna call them statements now. So you use your statements during the week. And so the statement for the week is, for that week was, what is required is received, right? And that, the challenge with that is really like, you know, can I take the biggest challenges? Can I take the things that are not what I wanted at all, that go completely wrong? And can I receive those things and integrate them? So whose week went completely south and you were just like, I don't know what to do with myself?
I was definitely lower, I promise.
Right, and that's
just figure my shit out.
That's the thing. It's like, if you can receive it, right, and not project it, not go into your story, not go into your narrative about it, not, you know, lash out at another person, right? But if you can just receive that and then kind of be with it, then you can learn from it. Then you can transform it. But if we go back into these old patterns of like, you know, whatever the case may be, if we adopt the old pattern, there's no way to move forward, right? We end up just back in the same old place again. So there's like a little bit of containment there, you know, that when we receive these things, that we're sort of, you know, we contain them. We don't sort of act out on them. And in that quality, we start to get the nutrition that they can offer us. And then it's true too that like what's required is received is a lot of the time, like you'll start to see these little breakthroughs, right? You'll start to see these little like glimmers of hope and transformation that it's like, oh wow, like, you know, I didn't get triggered by that the same way I normally would have gotten triggered by that. And so those things are received as well, those little rays of progress and those rays of transformation. And, you know, Michael sent me a great picture this week of like him sitting and meditating on this beautiful, you know, rock outcropping. And it immediately brought me to what is required is received. So, right, he was receiving that experience, and I'm sure it was a great experience. It looked like, you know, from the pictures that you were having this really transformative experience, and it was, you know, I was like, that's great, because that's what's required for him right now.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah. So it's not just like, I don't want it to feel like it's just like, oh, like, fuck, the rest of my life is gonna be so shitty because I have to transform all these traumatic emotions that I've experienced throughout my life, and I might as well just, you know, not go out of the house anymore. But the exact opposite is true too. That as soon as you get that momentum and that transformation, and you start to see, oh wow, I'm making progress. And it might just be little things at first, like it might be just having more compassion with your kids, right? I know that's a huge part of my practice, is having this relationship with my children. And an interesting story is like, we our oldest is 17, and like he does everything a 17-year-old does, like stays up late, has no conception of how to shut a door, right? Like it baffles my mind. Like it just is, somehow the door always has to slam behind him. Like it's amazing. Like, and so he would wake me up at like 3 a.m, 2 a.m, right? And I would get up, and on Friday night, I was just sitting there, and I'm like, door slams. I hear him in his room, and I never hear the door slam, right? The slamming of the door, like oftentimes just wakes me up, right? And then I hear him stomping around his room, and I'm like, he just needs to move into the garage. Right? And it wasn't like anything I thought of. And by the way, our garage is very nice. Like Rachel's sewing area was out there and everything. Like it wasn't just like he needs to go in the garage with like the boxes and just be in there, right? Like I'm gonna stick him in there. But it was just like, it wasn't like I thought this thing. It wasn't like I was like, I came up with this plan. It was just like, he needs to move into the garage. I just knew it. And then I mentioned it to her the next day, and Rachel was immediately like, that sounds awesome, right? Let's make it happen. And so over the course of the Saturday, we made it happen. He's in the garage now. I slept like a baby last night. Like it was awesome. There was no noise. There was no sound. It was really great. But it was like, what is required is received.
Also needs coffee because the garage is dope. There's like a giant ass TV,
Right.
floor, bunch of couches,
Yeah.
chairs.
Yeah.
It's like a really nice crash pad.
And it's getting him to the point where it's like, hey man, if you had your own space, this is what it could be like.
If you moved
Right.
in my house,
You could have your own space,
you could
right?
have a dope pad.
Yep.
in my house.
So it's very interesting.
Child abuse, by the way.
Sure, we'll see how cold it gets.
Get some space heater.
We'll see how cold it gets, right? Hopefully he doesn't start burning his clothes for heat. Or my clothes, for that matter. Or towels. The towels and blankets, he just starts burning them. But yeah, it's, I think that pattern in our lives of kind of, so much of what we do and so much of what we think about is to prevent things, right? To stop things from happening, to have things not happen. And so to flip that switch and to get to the mental attitude, to get to the state where we're saying, no, like, I don't need to stop anything, right? What I will receive will be required, right? What will occur in my life will be required for my evolution as a being on this planet. And so all that mental activity that I do and trying to prevent things, and I'm not saying like, don't buckle your seatbelt, right? Like still like, but it's more that like all that kind of worrying, right? That worrying that goes on. Like when we start to get into the state where what's required is received, like you don't need to do that as much anymore.
You know what's scary about it? The sun's sent to the universe anyway. Man, it's kind of frustrating.
And it's a conversation like I was talking about, right? So it's like, there's nothing wrong with having intentions and right and aligning yourself energetically with the things that are true for you and are authentic for you. But if there's any dissonance there that's still within you, that's going to show up in the universe. That's going to show up in your experience. And then it's that conversation of like, oh, I want to be financially well off, but I totally forgot about the fact that, you know, my mom took out all this debt and used to overspend on us, right? And I have this energetic around, you know, that, right? That's what I grew up with, is there was always this anxiety in my house around money and around, you know, things, stuff, like buying things, buying nice things. And so like, if I'm trying to be financially well off and pay off all my debt and get to this place, like all that stuff starts coming up, right? And there's little glimmers of hope. There's little like nuances there where I feel like, oh wow, this is going really well. And then there's all the crap of like, oh dang, like I don't have enough money if, you know, my dog breaks his leg or something, right? Like there's all that stuff that comes up. So it's this constant conversation with the universe around your intention. Are you energetically aligned enough for that to manifest? And then here's the stuff that you still haven't processed that you're gonna need to process, because it's gonna allow you that when you get to that state, you'll really be able to maintain it and sustain it and grow it and share it with others and pass it along. Does that make sense? But you lose control. You don't lose control, you now are co-creating, right? So you recognize that you actually have no control to begin with, that you've never really had control for the most part, and your ego dies because it's like, shit, all this work and I've never really had control, right? It's like, you think you've been doing all this stuff to like manipulate the universe, but in reality, it's always been an energetic alignment that's allowed that to come into being. And so, you know, coming into being, really that's what we've been doing the whole time. And we've had to get ourselves energetically aligned to allow those things to come into being. And you have to get rid of that dissonance in order to get that alignment, in order to get that to come into being. So it's just like, you know, it's this process that we're all kind of learning that is not taught in any school or any, you know, kind of classroom. It's really learned through, you know, you hear about it in The Secret, you hear like Oprah, you know, all those different, like as corny as those things are, right? Like they are teaching some of these basic universal principles around how things sort of, manifest could be the word, right? But it's more about you. It's not about what's happening in the universe. It's about what's happening inside of you and shifting those states within you to allow.
For me,
Right?
yeah.
And there's so much, I mean, you know, the things that you hear in there is like expectation, right? We've had so many messages, so many, you know, cultural, societal, familial, even in Silicon Valley, right? There's certain like regional expectations that are put on men, women, you know, races, all that stuff that exists. And, you know, they're just constantly looping to say whether or not you fit in, right? And are you vulnerable, right? Because if I don't fit in, I'm vulnerable. I might be outcast, right? And nobody, like, unless you go that route of like, I want to be an outcast, right? But even then you're trying to fit in as an outcast, right? Which is the catch-22 of it, right? Like my kids, like I used drugs when I was growing up because I wanted to be different, right? And it was like, well, you're just being the same as all the people that use drugs, all right? But you don't get that. You think you're different, but you're really not, right? And but this kind of drive that like, you know, I need to do this thing to be that thing, right? I need to fit into this box because that box is successful, or, you know, whatever the case may be. And then that, everybody knows that. Like, I don't need to explain that to you. That's nothing new. That's not worth your time and your energy here. What is worth your time and your energy here is me telling you this next thing, which is the greatest trick the mind ever pulled, was making you think you need to actually decide about something. Because you don't. Right? What if you just held space for whatever? What if it was like a Chinese restaurant and you walked in and you said, this is what I want to feel. And they brought you out a plate. Right? And you didn't even know what it was. But that's the relationship you can have with the universe. You can send it out that this is the vibration that I want to be at. I don't know how the fuck you're going to get me there. But I'm going to hold this vibration. And whatever I vibrate at, baby, it's going to show up. Right? Because that's what I want to be at. I want to be at a hum, right? That is just like a chime, you know. That's why those chimes and right the singing bowls, right? That's why all that stuff works so well to change your experience, because it's literally changing the vibration of your cells. And so you don't have to decide. You don't have to want to have kids. You don't have to not want to have kids. It's okay to say like, I don't know. Because I've never had kids, right? Like, and I don't know what my partner wants, right? Does my partner want to have kids? Does my partner not want to have kids? Because that's going to make a huge difference in my decision of whether or not I want to have kids. Because that person should be the most important person in my life, right? And Rachel said, I don't want to have kids. And I said, cool, right?
Not accurate.
Well,
Let's have a million pets, and you're like, all right.
well, that was true too. Because I've always wanted a squad of doggos. But I was cool with that. But it was like, I came out of my situation. I didn't know if I wanted to have kids or not. But I know I wanted a family. And that didn't mean I need to have kids. Right? I just knew I wanted to have a family. I wanted to have a person in my life after I lost the person that was the love of my life. I wanted to have a new person into my life that I could share my life with and who I was. And that was the vibration I was holding. It wasn't that I needed a, 5'8", stunningly gorgeous, creative artist with a kind, warm heart and a fantastic work ethic, right?
To be honest, I'm pretty sure you vibrated exactly.
Right? It wasn't like I didn't set out for that. But right, the vibration.
One meter, Burning Man.
Right? It's like I didn't have that at all. And I will guarantee you, if you look at your life and you look at the biggest things that have kind of manifested in your life, that like many of them were very unplanned, right? That you didn't have a plan going in, but that what showed up there was exactly what you needed. Right? And going back to that, what's required is received, right? So I guess like getting out of that mental game, right? When I said like, find your energetic alignment, cultivate your energetic alignment, it wasn't about thinking, right? And then what's required to receive, it wasn't about thought. And that's the scary thing, right? Is that like, wow, I'm not like mentally, I'm not running the show anymore, right? I'm not mentally, manipulating and transfixing in the world and then, trying to arrange the entire universe to get what I want. It's that I'm creating this space for what will fulfill me to manifest. You don't just push the button and it shows up on the doorstep, unfortunately. Unless you get really good, then it does work a little bit like that. Anyway.
I wonder if it's a little bit of both.
What do you mean?
A little bit of both of the universe not giving a shit, but at the same time, like the universe giving you what you need versus what you want.
What's required is received, right? So it's like, it's not what's requested is received, right? There's a difference there. Like, that's why I didn't say what's requested is received.
What's ordered.
Right. It's not like that. It's like,
What did you say?
Ordered on Amazon.
yeah, it's not what you, but it'd be like if you ordered something on Amazon, like say you wanted like, you wanted an egg maker or something, And so you order the egg maker, and then you get like an air pop machine, and you're like, wait, what are you trying to tell me, universe? Right? Like, that's what it's like. Like, that's what you should be gearing it towards. Like, that's like the perfect, like, wait, what is this trying to tell me? Like, wait, did I choke on popcorn as a kid? And like, I still haven't processed that yet. And so the universe is giving me this air pop machine so I can like deal with that emotion that I never dealt with. And then I can get my egg maker once I've evolved beyond that. Yeah.
So